production takes time, you know.
That's true.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. This is BUB'S Comics here saying hello. And Roger, are good as always with me. I've got Metarog. Say, what's up, dogs?
I have no idea what that means. Greetings, everyone.
Oh. And then how about you, DS Comics? Why don't you say hello to all my flowery loved ones?
What's up, everyone?
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, in the chat already, we got JPL Flash Comics Geekdom staying up late. You know, he's getting married, so I don't know how many more of these late nights he's going to be pulling.
Hopefully not many for him.
Yeah, probably not. He'd be exhausted. Rayman, the Silencer Man, in the chat. Area 51, Mike's here. Hello, Mike. Good to see you. Comic Lover Omega's in the house. So, and I'm sure more people. My chat always updates slow. So,
we got
Pro 186.
Yeah, Daniel's in the house. We got
from Heroes to Icons. I see.
Heroes to Icons. Jason is in here. Wow, good stuff.
Man, I don't see any of those people. I have to reload this thing.
Yeah, that's what happens if you start the live chat before the actual before we go live, then it'll only show people that were there before. It won't really bring anybody new. You got to jump out and jump back in. And Metarog's in the house. That guy, he's always following around. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I have a blue wrench.
Oh yeah, I gave you one. Yeah, you've got a blue wrench.
Yes.
Do I have one?
Yeah, you've got one.
I still have no idea what it's for.
I mean,
know
there was no
moderating or something.
Yeah, you didn't miss any training or anything. So basically, if you click on somebody's chat name or whatever, then you can like block them or remove a post or something like that.
Why would I want to do that?
Sometimes people get inappropriate. I've had to do it a couple of times on the chat.
Okay. Well, I'll check for impropriety, but I haven't seen.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had I think we've had 2 trolls in our history.
Trolls
that were saying some nasty things. I had to boot them.
Oh, you know what? I think
Knights of Old is in here. The man with the incredible Silver Age collection.
Yeah,
silver and gold.
Silver and gold. Yeah, that's right. Those Captain America.
Speaking of your trolls, Bub, I think the time travel episode is the first one of these that had no thumbs down. I don't know if that's still held, but
probably not. I'd say some of them.
I tell you, we scared some people. They figure we'll go back in time and do something to them.
It was also one of our lowest viewed episodes, so maybe that had something to do with it.
It was also the only one we didn't talk about comics at all, really.
Yeah, as it turned out.
But I've been watching that replay of that. Like, I've probably watched the replay 5 times, and I love that one, man. We just had so much fun on that
one. Well, we can do it again if we ever figure out how to go back in time.
It's been tried, but you know, there used to be this magazine called Omni. I don't know if it's still around.
I remember that.
You remember that? And they had an article in there where this guy supposedly was a spy, an industrial spy, and he swore that the Russians had a way to do time travel.
Well, maybe they did.
Like, if that's the case, they wouldn't be in the poo-poo that they are now, so I doubt it.
Well, maybe he just didn't go back to the right thing. Maybe he was just trying to go back and like make Superman the Red Sun or something.
Or you don't know. Maybe they were in far worse shape, and he went back in time, and this is way better than it was originally. So, I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, hey, that's true. This could be the best case scenario. You're right.
You know, if you're going to go back in time, you make it the best you can. Don't be, so. Nobody's going to know. You know, it's not like you have to be like, you have to stealth play it. Go back in time. That's it. Whatever.
Well, yeah, if anybody, I'm going to throw this out there again, though. If anybody wants a cool, unknown time travel movie, check out Lunopolis. Very cool. I think it's on Netflix for free or something, or Amazon Prime. I can't remember, but Lunopolis. I'll type it in the chat. If anybody likes time travel movies, really cool, independent.
Yep, put it in there. I'll watch it this weekend.
Cool. Let's do that. Knights of Old says that Umbrella Chronicles has some good time travel so far. And let's see. Also, Daniel's wondering if the topic for tonight, which is price, comic prices. Pro 186 is wondering if the 1 in 25 Immortal Hulk has sparked this. So we'll go ahead and start the topic off with that, because this is it did that, and then also that we got Detective Comics 1000 coming out.
Right.
So if Action Comics 1000 is anything to be, agreed with at the $7.99 price tag, which I did not pay that for this. But if I don't know, prices are getting ridiculous, and they're not even, I'm not seeing any increase in quality for that price. It really just seems like they're only after our money, like as collectors.
What is the price for those of us not in the loop on moderns? I mean, what's the price you guys are talking about for these?
Okay, so I brought a couple of examples. So to start off, just like DS said, so if anybody needs to be brought up to speed of what's going on in the current market, so here's a new book that came out a couple weeks ago, I reckon. That's $4.99 for a new #1 first issue, and every issue in this like limited run, I think there's going to be 5 of them, maybe only 3, but every issue in this run is going to be the same price, $4.99.
Oh, and that's a brand new book there, Hulk Verines.
Yep.
Is that Hulk and Wolverine versus Weapon X?
Weapon H. Weapon H.
Yeah, Weapon H.
Yeah.
Weapon Hulk.
Yeah. Obviously cool. Ridiculous. But it's a Greg Land cover, and I like Greg Land, and actually it was a pretty good book so far. So it's only the first one, but I actually liked it. But we'll talk about that in a minute. And then and then as another example, just while we're talking about, so there's like a standard comic, right? Well, I only brought out mostly Marvel examples. But DC is usually about $1 behind. So they're about $3.99 right now for DC. They were holding pretty strong at $2.99 for a while, but they're most of them are at $3.99 now. Let's see.
Is that for a 32-page comic?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So that's $4.99, huh?
Yep. And what's funny is that this is a title that a lot of people pick this up, even if they're not picking up a lot of new titles, just because it was kind of gimmicky and it worked, right? Okay, I'll buy that cover if nothing else because it's goofy looking and see what happens, right? And it's a limited series, so you're not too invested. However, here's a book that has been heavily invested in over the last year. So here's Immortal Hulk #1. Now I bought this was $4.99 cover price, and all the Immortal Hulks along the line are $4.99 cover price unless there's some crazy variant coming out. So what's funny, and they have one coming out now. So this book is so funny because people say that it's kind of a sleeper hit and people didn't know. Everybody was talking about this book when it came out. It had Alex Ross as the standard cover artist for all the cover A's, most of them. Going through the run. So that when they put one of their top artists on the cover for a book, not just a variant cover, but the standard covers, and this is a cover swipe. I forget. Roger, do you remember what Incredible Hulk this is swiping? Where he's coming out of the ground like that?
Isn't that from the Hulk annual?
It may be. I forget the number of it. In any case,
somebody will chat. I'll hit us up. Somebody will chat.
I know it's coming. So this is a comic that now people are like, oh, if you're not reading this, I don't know what you're reading, and you really got to get on that bandwagon. It's a great book. Personally, I couldn't stand the book. I checked out somewhere around issue 4. Just really overhanded kind of liberal nonsense, and not that I don't enjoy some liberal turns to some stories and things. That's fine. I don't get too political as far as that goes, but this was really overhanded. And then finally, they had one issue that came out. I forget which number it was, but it had like a review on the cover. It printed its own review. Like it just came out. It's already been reviewed. It was so stupid. And it printed its own review saying you got to read these books because it's a horror comic that doubles as a morality play. I'm like, I don't know about all that. It was it was pretty cheap horror and cheap morality, in my opinion.
So how much does that go for now?
Well, now this book is like, $15-20. on a good day. So but the point is, but that this whole run. So then they have number 2, I believe, was a first appearance of some bad guy, right? So then so that book is like, I just sold one for 60.
Yikes.
So I sold my copy for $60, and that was like a week ago. And then and I had the rest of the run too, from 3 to 8, which is when I stopped picking it up. And I sold the rest of that run to a comic shop to get supplies last week. And then there's another one, like number 13 has got some attention because it was another new villain. You know, new villains always get a lot of attention, even though I think they're terrible investments.
Ed says it's Dr. Fry, the new villain, and it's a swipe of Werewolf by Lunchtime says it's Hulk 105, and that's correct. It is Hulk
105. Okay, cool.
That's what I was thinking. It's just, you know, annual. That's one of those key issues that I had at some point, and it's kind of out of mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And and by the way, Discovery Bay Comics is in the chat. Thanks, JB, for the shout out as always on Monday. So we appreciate what you do for the community. And so that's what's going on with a book like this. Now everyone's talking about, oh, you got to get this book. Well, this book was printed in high volume, high numbers. There's literally a million of them out there, right? But if you go to buy one right now at a comic shop, the comic shop is going to ask for $15, $20. They're going to ask for $10 to $15 on any of the regular issues. And then on the first appearance issues, they're asking for $60 to $75. So if you wanted to start back reading this run from the beginning, even though there's a ton of them out there, every single person who has one for sale, like, no one will just throw one out there for $5. And when they do, it gets bought up immediately. So it's so instantaneous. It's like a blip on the price radar, you know?
Right.
And it just goes. So when, you know, Knights of Old saying current print runs are pretty low, you know, the issue is availability to me. So I'm not trying to get into the exact number of a print run, but what I'm saying is that when this book came on the shelves, every single comic shop in America had 5 to 10 copies of it. So that's a lot of books, you know. It's not an independent book. It's not, you know, it was readily available. You can still order the newest one on pre-order. And personally, I don't get real investment happy on any book that has an ongoing series, because this is like up to number 16 or 17 already. And eventually it's going to lose the attention of people, and they'll be in the next hot book or the next hot series. But right now, if you're collecting a modern series, this is the series that everyone is after to collect and to keep going. That, and I guess Batman Who Laughs probably, who has a ton of variants also. So on the DC side. So my only point, I bought this on pre-order, so I get 35% off cover. So, you know, I'm in at less than $4 and happy about it, right? But then I quit because the book stunk to me, which other people love it. But then you have other books that are like this, and this is like The Hunt for Wolverine. So this was a big market play before it started, right? So this was in the previews magazine. This was the big talk. We're bringing Wolverine back from the dead. And how are we going to bring him back from the dead? With 5 separate, or actually 3 or 4. Oh man, that was 1, 2, 3. I think maybe 4 separate 5-issue series. Does that make sense? And each one had 2 to 3 variants. So, and this book coming out, which this was a variant, but this one coming out was $5.99. Just because they knew people were going to want to collect these books, and it had a lot of variants too. So there you go, $5.99 for that book. So to give you an idea. Wow. Similarly, here's another book, right, that everyone was speculating on. And so Marvel did a really, really ingenious thing with this one. And in my opinion, this was their coup de grace for the last, 3 years. So here's $3.99 was the cover price on this book. Fairly modest compared to the last two, right? You had $4.99, $5.99. This was only $3.99, and for an ASM. So you knew that people were going to be buying this anyway, right? Because he already has a following, and there's people out there who buy every Spider-Man comic no matter what. But they teased that a new villain was going to be coming out called the Red Goblin, right? And they teased that for like 5 issues. That they didn't say when he was going to appear, so everyone was early specking on this book. And I think the strongest speculations come out around 796, where people are like, really, that's it. Everyone go buy this book. And they were hard to get. And then once they opened it and found out that it wasn't in there, it didn't really matter because you're stuck with them, right? So, because everyone was pre-ordering them. So they really, really knew what they were doing on this book because they pumped up the pre-orders on this book. And because you have to pre-order a certain amount for the shop to get access to the variants, they also had multiple variants for all those books. So the question was, if this turns out to be the book, if 796 turned out to be the book that had the villain in it, and then you had to go out and buy every variant of that book too. So the shops were overbuying, customers were overbuying anyway. And then the villain finally comes out in 798, and there's multiple copies for that. And then you're already on the road to 800, so you know what's coming next, right? Amazing Spider-Man 800. But on the way there, you've bought, 6 comics on the way to the road to 800 that were only $3.99 each, right? But then, but they were bought in such mass quantities, all trying to find this new villain, which now, you'll hear people who have like a stockpile of these things, like they got like 20 of them stashed in a box somewhere, and they're going to be like, oh, well, that villain, he's going to come back. He's going to be a big deal. Nobody cares. Why are they going to bring him back? Instead, they're just going to bring in another new villain and get all the same sales again. So that was super smart by Marvel, in my opinion, to run that table. I'm almost done with the quick lecture. Then you got ASM,
like a monologue almost you have here, but okay.
Sorry. You got ASM 800, and that sold for $9.99. And that's one of the variants.
$10 for that new?
Yep, $10 for that. And I picked that one up for $1. I found it in a dollar bin.
Nice.
$10 when it came out, which is insane.
Secondary market.
Yep. And then, so anyway, so that's it. So my point is that with Detective Comics 1000 coming out, they're going to follow the trend that they did with Action Comics 1000. And just, it's going to be expensive and ridiculous. And there's going to be, I think Action Comics had something like 25 covers when it came out. I know ASM did, for sure. ASM 800 had like 25 covers. And then with all the store exclusives and variants, and then you had pre-order exclusive variants from specific artists that only sold through their private website, sold the comic. So there was tons of them out there. And really, if you tried to collect them all, first, you'd probably go broke. And second, as soon as you thought you had them all, you'd find out somebody had a 1 in 100 variant that you didn't know about, and then you can't get it because they're all sold and bought. So there you go. So those, from Heroes to Icon says one of the worst comic traps of 2018. These were pretty big deal. Only exceptions that like Spider-Man 800. Okay. So, I mean, there's lots of people that really do like these books and these covers, and I'm not knocking anybody who chooses to spend their money on these books. As long as they're aware, in my opinion, that these are not truly rare, most of them. Some of those variants can be, and they certainly can be scarce as far as people eager to buy them and there not being as many available. But they're not really, there's nothing rare about these books, most of them. And they're charging a ton of money for them. Some people are like, well, how are you buying all these keys? Well, one way is to not buy every variant cover that I see that looks nice, because the prices have got crazy. So what do you guys got?
Well, I would have some advice for one group of collectors. I see 2 groups of comic people out there. One group likes to go to Wednesday to the comic shop, get the new books, read them, follow the stories, follow the characters, and they're into comics in a sort of contemporary manner. They follow it as it goes along, and they read them and they like them, and that's fine. I still think that $10 for a comic is excessive. $4.99. I mean, if you're buying them each week and you're really enjoying them, what's $5? But that's one group, and I say go for it. Buy what you want. Keep up with the story. Follow along. But there's a whole group of other people out there in the comic hobby that are going out and grabbing these up, getting them slabbed, get multiple copies so they can make profits on them, or just to have them for their collection down the road. They want to get that book in their collection for their PC. For those people, I say just wait 5 years. I mean, just collect 5 years ago. Like, look at what you wanted from 5 years ago and go get it now, because none of these are going to be, they're all right. There's exceptions to every rule, but I think the rule is for these new comics, 5 years from now, they're all dollar bin books. There's tons of them out there. You'll be able to get all of these for $1, 3 to 5 years from now. If you were to ask some of these people who are into these modern comics a lot, what are the best books or what are the best variants to get from 2013? People will struggle to come up with an answer. Everybody knows now what's the hot books that just came out in the last couple months. But if you go back to 2009, 2013, 2015, people will struggle to come up with 10 hot books off the top of their head because they're not hot anymore. They were hot then. All these books that are hot now, these variants, these number ones, whatever, these reboots, all this stuff, just wait a couple of years. And if you're for the long haul and you have a collection that you're going to go on for the long haul with, just wait a couple of years and keep an eye out for them and pick up all the ones you want when you find them in dollar bins. And then you don't have to spend all this crazy money, because there's people on eBay, something came out last week, they're spending 20, 25 bucks on eBay to buy a copy. That's crazy. I mean, just wait a little bit and wait till it shows up in a dollar bin, because all this back stock that's out there, it fades out when the next hot thing comes along. And then you've got, millions of comic issues from the last 10 years out there in dollar bins, at cons for cheap, at comic shops. And that's my view on it. If you're trying to collect for the PC, don't spend a ton on these new books. You'll find them, a couple years from now, cheap as hell. But if you just like reading them and you want to keep up with the new characters, yeah, buy them. I mean, $5 is not, you see that I've got, almost $3,000 worth of books on the screen. I don't have a problem spending on books. If you want to spend $5 on a book that you think is a cool read and you just are keeping up with the series and you really like it, yeah, that's a great deal. But for those that are trying to collect for value or for the long term, I would just wait. Just start looking for the ones from 2013, 2014, 2015 that you wanted. They're out there now for $1. These new ones, wait till it fades out and the market's flooded with a bunch in dollar bins and to go pick them up a couple years from now.
I think that's good advice,
and it might be good advice or bad advice, but keep in mind it's coming from somebody who knows virtually nothing about modern comics. I don't buy modern comics. I don't read them. I don't collect them.
Well,
that's part of the reason why, but I mean, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm not in that genre, so I sort of have little frame of reference. So whatever it's worth is what it's worth.
Well, but you have historical reference. We have anecdotal data that backs you up 100%. Like McD just, I was reading through the chat and he says he buys his every week because he loves the stories and he enjoys the characters, and he buys the variants that only the ones that he likes the artist of. Well, yeah, that's okay.
That's a successful comic collector of modern comics right there, because he's never going to be disappointed. He's never going to lose value. He's getting full value for what he's getting.
Exactly. That McD is the kind of comic collector which there's logic and there's passion behind his buying. And what you said, is right. I mean, $5 to me is excessive, but in the long scheme of things, it's half a lunchtime, whatever, So it's not gonna make a difference, unless you're one of those real, long-term, longitudinal savers, right? But what I see now is happening, and Bub, to come back to where Bub was talking about, that Marvel was playing this. They're playing to the market, but not in a good way. I mean, they're playing to a speculative market. And if that's the case, if it works, they're going to continue doing it. And what you just said, you're going to find is that a Romita cover, by the way? That's a beautiful cover.
Yeah,
beautiful cover. That is going to it's because they're going to replicate it if it works. Okay, so Red Goblin, it'll be the Purple Goblin, it'll be the Chartreuse Goblin, it'll be the Tan Goblin, and so on and so forth. Because if that's what's working, because But their concern is not the secondary market or a collector mentality. They need to justify their jobs, their positions. And the only way they can do that is to show profits.
Well, part of that, the other aspect to this, which you tied into there, Roger, was, you know, let's just talk about Marvel. They're the biggest one, obviously. Their customer is not us. It's not Comic Geek McD. It's not you or me or Bub. Their customer is the comic shop. And they are losing customers and they are losing sales because they are not doing things geared towards their customer. They are gouging their customer through their diamond monopoly partner. And the variants, you have to buy so many of the regular issues to get the variant. That's why all these are going to be out there for cheap as hell in a couple of years, because, you know, any of these 1 in 100 variants, they're rare in the relative to modern comics, but they're far more common than anything I ever show on my channel. Things I show on my channel are far more rare than 1 in 100 variants. So they're not, in an absolute sense, that rare. And comic shops have to buy a ton of the regular issues to get one of those, and they're buying them up to get that one because they know people want it. But then they're not making money, they're going out of business, and it's really hurting the comic shops, which are the actual customers. But it's like Marvel doesn't care. They just want to, you know, they're killing the golden goose, or the goose that lays the golden egg. I always get that wrong.
The golden egg, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to gouge them until they die, and then they're going to try to find something else, and they just go more and more extreme with the variants so that they can get more and more sales of the regular issues. But comic shops can't survive that way, and sales are way down. If you look at the numbers on Comic-Con from the 80s compared to today, the 80s was killing it. Yeah. Today is like, you know, the top issues that are selling today would be canceled in the 80s based on the numbers. Like, they wouldn't even be in the top 50 on an 80s Comic-Con list. I mean, so I don't know. There's a lot of things going on here, but if you really just want to collect them, either pay up to get a CGC 9.8 and then you've got it locked down, which I don't have a problem doing. You can spend $100 on a 9.8 of something that came out a month ago. I don't have a problem with that. It's already graded. It's guaranteed 9.8 if you're into that, which I am.
I mean, I think another concern with the pricing, well, not a concern, but another rationale, I guess, that they have is that the paper quality is much better than it was in the 80s, DS.
Oh my God.
I disagree. I mean,
it's okay, hold on.
I hate
when I say the paper quality is much better, it in other words, it's not, I agree with you. I know what you're going to say, but what I say is this, that this paper, you know, people have this acid-free board and so forth. This paper is very high quality, but it doesn't show up well. I mean, as far as
think this paper has acid in it at all. I think I think this paper is practically made out of nylon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's barely paper. It's as much paper as like money is, which is not even really paper. It's like, I don't know. I get it. It's so high quality, and the digital colors are so high quality, and it's just, I mean, I get it. It's super high quality, but that's what I'm saying. It's because of that. None of them are miswrapped. There's no lack of centering. The colors are equally rich on every copy. There's every copy you find in a dollar bin 3 or 4 years from now is going to be you will be able to find 9/8 left and right.
I can't take it anymore. That's completely false. So no.
I mean, I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't know what the hell.
I'll help you. So here's what's going on. What's going on with DC's bad, but Marvel is the worst right now. Their paper quality is of such that it does not hold the ink. So as soon as you take, you know how any kind of black cover can get a fingerprint on it?
Mm-hmm.
So now if you pull out a black cover, you'll get black on your finger. It actually takes the ink off the page. That's on interior pages as well as the cover. So when I hold, and it's not just Marvel either, like I said, DC's like that, Dynamite's like that. If you hold a book in your hands for, I don't know, 2 minutes, you'll have to peel the book off your fingers. That's how bad it's gotten. So people are getting 9/8 because they're never taking them out of the bag, because if they touch them once, they're already ruined. They're very poor. They have no staying power. I'm holding on to my copy of Immortal Hulk #1. Yes, it's a key of sorts, and it's a slightly sought after book. It's not the best book in all of them as far as that goes, but it has black on the cover, and I know that my fingerprints are all over the cover because I remember reading it and getting ink all over my hands while reading it. It's absolutely terrible.
I remember having a Ghost Rider comic from like '91, and I've since sold it. I can't remember, but the whole interior was printed on black pages. All the panels were on the border on the outside was black. So instead of having white pages, it had all black pages on the inside, full black interior. And I remember reading through it and getting that fingerprint smudge. And I remember that on a couple of other books from the early '90s when they started. I really noticed it when Image started putting out their books, especially Spawn. I was really into at the time. It looked like the paper quality changed around that time, and I did notice that the ink, especially the blacks, it would come off on your thumb. And I had some books where that would happen, especially like Ghost Rider one. You know, I'm a Golden Age collector. I like newsprint. I think it's got a charm to it that something super high tech and high quality like modern comics doesn't have for a collector like me. I'm not saying it's not good. It's the artwork today and the production value is spectacular. But the paper quality, all right. So even you can say what you want about the smudging. I don't know if it holds ink or not, but that could be a problem. But I think 95% of modern comics are never opened anyway. And the ones you'll find in the dollar bin 5 years from now, most of those have never been opened. They came to the comic shop. They were put in a bag and board. Nobody bought them. They got put in the back room. Comic shop goes out of business. Somebody buys them out, and then they're at a con in a dollar box, and there's 4 issues in a row of Immortal Hulk #1, all 9/8 candidates for $1. That's what's going to happen 4 years from now. If you want to read the story, you got to buy it now. But if you want to collect it for value, if you think it's going to be worth it, and you want to, like that. But if you just want to flip stuff on a short-term basis, that's totally different. You get the pre-orders, buy everything pre-order, whatever. Go out to all the comic shops you can early on Wednesday, get them all the ones you can, and then send them in to CGC quick or flip them on eBay, make a profit. You can do that. But if you just want them long term, just wait. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff from 2012 that you want long term. Go pick that stuff up now.
I don't know if they still have this, but I remember they used to have maybe 5-10 years ago where you could buy the comic already slabbed. In other words, I don't remember if it was Wizard or what, but they would guarantee you a 9.8 of any comic that you selected. It would cost you a premium, but it would come to you slabbed already. In other words, you would never even have to touch that comic. It would go from the publisher to the slab.
Yeah, there's a couple recently have done that. CBCS did one with Marvel, I think, for a Venom versus Carnage or a Venom and Carnage book recently. I think maybe 2016 or something. And only ones that were issued for that cover were the whole lot was sent to CBCS. They verified all the 9/8s, and the 9/8s were sold. So all of them out there were 9/8s. Now they only did 250, so it was limited to 250. But they sent them all. They sent a whole bunch to CBCS. They verified 250 9.8s and put those out on the market as a rare 9.8. Yeah, there's 250 9.8s on the census instantly. And then when I found out later, all the issues that didn't make it as a 9.8 eventually circuitously got back out into the market as raw copies. So it was kind of a scam. I think there was a lot of backlash. They've tried that a couple times, and I didn't think it worked out real well. So I don't think that's a practice that's going to work very well.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I remember that happening. I remember that was a thing. And when you said, some of them are never touched and so forth, well, that's a way to sort of guarantee that if you're just going to buy it for the cover or for an investment, that would be the way to go because you got to guarantee 9.8.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm down with buying, for collecting comics is not the same as reading comics. No. It's like a Venn diagram where the circles have some intersection, but they're not the same. I collect comics, but I also sometimes read them. But if you ask me what I do with comics, I collect them. I'll buy a comic that I've never even seen in person. I'll buy a slabbed copy in an auction or online. And when I get it, like this one, this Beware Terror Tales, I've never even seen that in person before, ever. Never read it ever online, reprints ever. I love the cover. I bought a slabbed copy. Never even read it. Now, down the road, I'll go out and intentionally try to find a reprint or something to read it. But that's not my main goal with a book like that.
Yeah, the curiosity would kill me. I mean, I'm just one of those people that I need to know about everything about that comic. So I will dissect that comic. I'll go through it. I'll read it. I'll smell it. I'll handle it. I want to know about that comic. I want the full experience. So for me, that's why slabs for me is a problem because it's nothing against it per se. But me personally, it doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? It
No,
just
I
doesn't
totally
work
get
for
it.
my experience.
When I buy raw ones like these other two, which are raw right now, but I will get these slabbed. I've already read through the Fantastic Fears. I haven't read through this one yet, but I read all my raw books, and then I eventually get them slabbed. You know, I don't have a problem with people buying slabs or collecting 9/8s, and I would even pay more for a 9.8 of a modern to lock it down as an investment if you think it's worth it. But you know, you can wait a couple of years. I look for 80s like Copper Age 9/8 candidates now to flip, because there's tons of them out there and they're cheap as hell, and you can find them in dollar bins left and right, like top-notch ones too. I mean, you're not going to find a 300 ASM 300, but you know, there's a lot of.
It has been found.
Yeah, it has.
Comics Addiction, I think, found one.
But that one's had enough time to really become a collectible gem in the comic history, where that's going back, you know, 30 years. But you can go back to 2008 and find books that are awesome in dollar bins or cheap. And, you know, if you just wait a little bit of patience will save you a lot of money as a collector.
Yeah, for sure. I think that as the what you said about people reading them, like you would read those books that are in slabs on, you know, digital or something like that, or, you know, reprint if you can come across one. And I think that my little personal opinion on what Marvel is trying to do, I've never been a big fan of theories that predicated on the, you know, a perpetrator of wrong, or a company that hadn't, or even the ignorance of a company. I just don't believe that. I don't think that Marvel is shooting themselves in the foot. I don't think that they're confused. And then when you look at, you know, DC doing similar things, I really don't think that they're doing anything other than what they plan to do at this point. I also don't think that they're a perfectly oiled machine either, but I think for the most part, there is some plan in effect that if anyone's ignorant, it's us ignorant of what that plan is exactly. But, you know, any business that has print, any print business, every print business thus far has made an earnest attempt to move towards digital. They are all trying. Why? Because digital is a billion times cheaper. You know, you get widespread, it's easier to distribute, it's controllable. And so I think what they're trying to do is turn print comics and completely gear it towards collectors. 100% adult or adultish collectors. And that's it. Print comics are for collectors, and not for readers necessarily, but strictly for collectors. And they're trying to push that envelope. And I really think what they're trying to do is push out what's left of the readers. They're trying to make them all collectors, people who only care about variants, and people who only. And will that put a comic shop out of business? Yes. And what's wrong with that? They're not getting any money. You know, we talk about going to a comic shop and buying back issues. Marvel's not getting any money on those back issues. They're getting nothing. They would much rather you try and read, you know, a back issue comic digitally that they can get money off of again. But anything back issue, they get nothing off of. Anytime someone takes a cover price book like this and then charges $20 for it, they get nothing off that. So wouldn't it be better if Marvel could control? I would think that there would still be an element of print, but why not? If you want to buy a Marvel comic, you go to marvel.com or whatever the heck it is, and you buy the variant directly from Marvel. And there's no reason why that system couldn't work, as long as you had people that were only there for the stories and reading digitally. And most comics are produced on computers now.
Yeah, so they're not even do that though, because then they're going to have far fewer sales, because nobody's going to buy. They're not going to sell 100 for a 1 in 100 variant. They're going to outsell the variants more than the regular issues. But right now, it won't be a 1 in 100 anymore unless they sell that 100 first. And the only way they can do that is with their little monopoly through Diamond. If they just got rid of that and you could order directly from Marvel, their sales would tank instantly, worse than they are now on a slope that's steadily going down. They would just instantly tank, because there would be books that come out with 1 in 100 variants. Everybody would go buy the variant, and nobody would buy the regular issue. And yeah, they wouldn't be making even as much money as they're making now.
I don't think that's the case, because the shops that have enough money to buy the 1 in 100 variants are doing fine. and they'll still be around. They'll have a small distributorship. What they're trying to knock out are the small comic shops who aren't buying 1 in 100 variants because they can't afford to buy, 100 copies of this book. They just can't move that many. So I don't think they're trying to get rid of the big, Midtown Comics is still going to be around. I think they're trying to get rid of the small comic shops because they're predominantly making money off back issues and these smaller comics that aren't making as much money. They don't need that. They'd rather those get read digitally if it's all about the story.
If they're trying to get rid of customers of any kind, that is the absolute worst business plan in history. But you may be right. But to intentionally try to lose a customer is insane, no matter how you slice it to me.
Yeah, because you're calling it losing a customer, and I'm calling it converting a customer. They want that customer to convert to digital, which has a higher profit margin. So if you can convert a customer to digital, you can lose for every one customer, say, I don't know their numbers exactly or their metrics, but let's say for every one customer you convert to digital, you can afford to lose 2 customers who are buying paper.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the cost is that much better.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that, and that might make sense. I read. Look, Mrs. DS reads books all the time, way more than I do. I read comics, but she'll read like books, literature of all kinds. She will not get audiobooks. She will not read them on her laptop or tablet or anything. She wants the actual book. And I think for comics, there's a lot of people the same way. They want the actual comic in their hand. They want to flip through it. They want to read it. I think comics is a little unique because most people who are into comics want to read the comic in their hand, the actual piece of paper. I don't think going digital those people aren't going to convert. I think they're just going to lose a lot of them because people will find other things to do, other things to occupy their time or other things to read, or they'll gravitate towards the comic companies that are still putting it out in print. Because, I mean, comics are sort of a unique art form, one of the true American art forms, and it's one of the few that has held up against this everything turning digitally. Like newspapers, when the internet came around, newspapers were in serious trouble, but comic books weren't. The internet came out, comic books didn't suffer from the internet at all. People like to have a comic book in their hand. So I don't think that's going to go away. I think they're going to end up getting a decent amount of subscribers if they go that route. But there's going to be a lot of people that are just going to gravitate to the companies that are still printing comics on paper because there's something to be said for comics and holding the comic in your hand. I think that's still always with comic books is going to be a thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I just don't know if it'll last another 10 years the way it is right now. I think they really do want to push to convert customers to digital, and that just makes sense for them as the cost of everything else rises.
And I don't think the people that run Marvel are any smarter than us three. So to say that,
well,
they're no smarter than us. They're just running the company.
But Bub puts together a very logical, a very forward-thinking argument. The only thing is, let me just tell you, these people at Marvel, and these are not Mensa members, all right? They have made some egregious errors that have cost them billions of dollars. Okay. For example, when they gave the people they have hired, okay, some of them have been essentially hedge funders, okay, that have sold off. Imagine like Sears is a which is now is going to tank at some point. Marvel was in that same boat. Okay, they sold off some of their most prized properties, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider, because they were going to go under. Okay, because of practices just like this. All right, the only way they could survive was to get those those intellectual properties, and that's what kept them afloat through the 90s. And then they had the genius idea of giving all their major characters to the Image guys, and that was a blunder. And I could come up with another dozen off the top of my head. They may not know exactly. I agree with you in principle, by the way, that's where it's heading. But I don't think that they plan it quite as copiously as you believe they are. I think that they have no choice because they have shot themselves in the foot so many times, and they have ostracized so many people that they have. It's a fallback. It's not their plan. It's their fallback. And they just lucked out that the movies and the MCU have been of spectacular hits. I mean, they have just been off the chart hits, and that's what's keeping them, afloat as far as in the limelight. But the comic book form, I agree with you. In 10 years, they're going the way of the dodo bird.
But I'll tell you another thing, though, another reason why, other than just the unique nature of comic books, that people like to read an actual comic book. Even people who are not serious collectors or spend a lot of money and they just buy the books on a weekly basis to read them, keep up with characters, and they're not spending a lot on books. Even those, everybody in the comic hobby is buying, selling, and trading with other people in the hobby to some degree. All of them. Everybody. From the highest end guys and dealers at the cons to, us in the YouTube community, or, whoever's just buying new comics to read them. They're all buying, selling, and trading. If you put them all digital, that doesn't happen anymore. And that's a big part of the hobby. It's connected intrinsically with comics, is the buying, selling, and trading. Even little kids, when I was a kid, I wasn't buying and selling. I would buy with my allowance, and then I would trade with my friends. That was part of it. If it was digital, it's not the same experience. It's not the same thing anymore. I think that's part of it.
No, certainly not. There are like, I know some of my friends from when I was in Florida, they trade digital baseball cards, but to me, that's utterly ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You possess, photons of light, so to me, it makes no sense.
I'm in agreement with you on part of that. But remember, in my scenario, they're still printing comics. You just have to go directly to Marvel to get them. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. I think that's the way it's going to happen.
Yeah, they're still printing comics in my scenario. It's not like print comics disappears. You just don't need a distributor from a comic shop anymore.
Yeah, so I agree.
Well, I'm curious to hear what the numbers are, because Marvel and DC both have online subscription services. I know Reggie's talked about on his channel. He's signed up for it. It's pretty cheap, and he can read all the new books and a lot of old back issues from Marvel too. I'd be curious to know how well those are doing. I haven't really looked into it, but I hardly ever hear anybody talking about that or anything. I'm sure there are people who have subscribed to it, but it doesn't seem like there's much interest in subscribing to comics digitally, honestly. And I'm not into moderns, again, so maybe I just don't know what the hell I'm talking about again, but I don't ever hear anybody talking about digital subscription comics ever, anywhere. So I don't think there's much interest in it at all.
If you just Google, how to read comics, and you put it into YouTube, you'll see videos. I remember when I first started collecting comics as an adult, and I was Googling a couple of things and searching in videos. A great many YouTubers and videos, they're not, whatever you want to call the YouTube community. This is more of the YouTube comic collector community than it is the YouTube comic community. There's a larger YouTube comic community that's really less of a community and really just about, people will say, yeah, well, I read all my comics digitally. And it's just a short little line that people will say,
Who says it? Tell me one person that you've ever heard say that.
I don't know. I don't follow them. I'm not
one person who digitally subscribes to comics. Anybody.
What I'm telling you is that when I was doing when I first started getting back into comics as a collector, I would go through a bunch of videos where people would talk about that they had digital subscriptions, and then I would ignore it because that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for people who were collecting comics in the physical form because that's what I was interested in. So all I'm saying is that there are a lot of people who read digital comics, or maybe not people that you come across, and certainly not in this community, but a lot of people do read comics online. So,
well, I
know that's
agree to disagree with you on that, but I think you're probably right on most of this, Bub. I just think if Marvel does these things, it's not going to help them, is what I think. I mean, look, the bottom line is if you're running a company, you need to put out a quality product, and then you will make money. It all boils down to this. People lose sight of the forest for the trees. Put out a good product, and people will buy it. You put out a crap product, it doesn't matter how you box it or what you put a bow around it or do it digitally or do some fancy variant gimmicks. Crappy product is a crappy product no matter how you package it. A good product,
it'll end up in the dollar store
for a good product. You can charge $9.99 for a comic book if it's a freaking awesome story and art. So yeah, that's the bottom line.
the digital, I think the digital is going to happen because that is how kids are growing up today. You know, kids are now getting iPhones at the age of what, 7, 8, 9. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, very young. I mean, when I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, everybody had one of those things, and you know, a lot of them were, you know, in elementary school. So, there's going to be a seismic shift in what is going to be happening in the future. That's why I don't agree with Bub how they're getting there, but I agree with the destination. That's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, Bub's right. I'm just getting to the age where I'm just becoming old and crotchety and grumpy. So well, I hate all this digital crap. Honestly, I can't stand it. So anytime somebody tries talking about digital crap, I'm like, oh, don't you shut the F up. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. You think I am? Please, you know, I didn't get an iPhone until like, you know, what, 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, so, but you guys are both You guys are both lost customers to them already, and failed conversions in my scenario.
Yeah, so which is a shame because
they failed to convert you.
It's a shame too because I spend more on comic books than, you know, probably the average person on YouTube community or comics. You know, it is what it is, but I spend a good amount of money on comics, and none of it is on Marvel. Doesn't get any of my money.
Right.
$0 from me, and I spent a lot on comics, and they get nothing from me. So, and they were for a while. I really stuck with them for a long time, and it was only like, you know, 3-4 years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I just completely gave it up because I wasn't getting any value for even a couple bucks anymore. So I just completely stopped.
Listen to this. Comics Edition says, my friend bought her daughter a tablet, right? She's 2.
Oh my God.
She's 2.
I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know how good or bad that is, but it's impressive.
It's impressive.
2-year-olds can operate these machines that I can't even figure out.
Hey, listen, I remember when computers were, you know, just out of the reach for the norm, and there were no homes with computers until I want to say the mid 80s, somewhere in there, when Commodore and Atari and those companies started. You know, that there were Macs and things like that, but those were really expensive. And it's just technology. It's just the future. It's just the way that, you know, that we are growing into that. The problem is that what we're discussing here is an anachronistic product, and it's getting to that point. And you know, I love it. I love this stuff. I mean, I go out, I hunt this stuff like, you know, I don't hunt for my clothes. I don't hunt for my furniture. Yeah, that's good enough.
Started on
good enough. You know, well, yeah, right. That's good enough. But my comics, I'm very picky about. I want certain ones. And not the condition so much, but I want certain ones that I've never read, that I want to read, that I want to experience. And in the future, they're just going to experience in a different way. That's all. You know, people used to read stuff out of, you know, on stone tablets. We don't do that anymore.
Well, you know? But I think, you know, there's something I say when I have discussions about technology or, you know, how this stuff's evolving. I always tell people here, and it's taken me years to come up with a precise, like a succinct idea of how I feel about technology. And this is what it is. And this applies to everything for technology, for my view of it, is that any technology that enhances the natural state is a good thing. You know, if it helps out communication, if it helps out transportation or marketing, if it's enhancing what's the natural state, it's good. If it replaces the natural state, it is bad. That's my view of it. Now, yes, we used to have stone tablets and writing on the cave walls, and that has evolved into comic books. That's the same thing. That's holding something in your hand that somebody has put down communication on, and it's being passed around by hand. When you start putting it into little bits on a computer and on a screen, I think that's replacing what I consider to be a natural state, honestly. Movies are not replacing a natural state. They are a new invention. There used to never be movies and TVs, and then they came about. That's like a sort of a new thing. But communication on paper or on a stone tablet or on papyrus, that's always been a natural state in human civilization. That's being replaced by something digital, and I think that's bad. There's a lot wrong with it, and it feels unnatural in a way that you can't quite put your hands on sometimes. And that's why I think it hurts when it comes to comic books, because a lot of times people don't know. I mean, why is it different to read it online? Well, I don't know. It's just not as good. It just feels wrong. You know what I mean? True. That's how I feel about it.
Well, it's true. It's true. Yeah. Listen, I'm totally in agreement. I'm just a realist. That's all I can say. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we now have a lot of product that if comics went away tomorrow, I'd be fine, because I can go back. You can go back to the 50s, the 40s. We can go hunting. We can find these treasures out there. You know, there's going to be stuff for us. Right. What I'm upset about is that in the future, my grandchildren are not going to experience the joy and the wonder that I did. You know, you can't have that. This is your point. You can't really experience that through a tablet or a phone, because it's too common. It's just too much of a daily routine. You know, to have a comic, to wait till the next story comes out, and that rush that you got when you got it and you got it home and you flip through it and you had something over your friend because he didn't have his comic yet. You know, that's all the kind of stuff that really makes childhood really wonderful, and that is what I think they're going to be missing. And
there was somebody in the chat. I'm trying to scroll back up to see who said it. I can't remember who said it. I can't find it. But when you have the comic in your hand, you can see the whole page at once. You don't have to scroll down to see the other panels and scroll back up or look at it on a smaller screen. Like, you can see the whole thing, and it's sort of in its entirety in front of you. And sometimes a lot of times when you're reading a comic, you will look ahead at the panel. You'll flip over to the next page quick. Just, you don't want to spoil it, but you want to see where it's going. And then you flip back and you read, or you'll look at like a bottom panel and then go back up and read down to it. And the way panel layouts is an art form in and of itself too. That gets totally lost digitally. You have to scroll down. When you look at a full page, even if you read the panels in order and you're reading the story in order, the panel layout is a form of art in the comic world. That gets deleted digitally. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely. In fact, you know, funny you should mention that, because on Thursday, I'm going to be part of another chat where we're going to be essentially dissecting older comics. And one of the it's going to be on Comic Head 84's channel, little plug here, and we're going to be dissecting Crisis #1. And what we do is that we look at things just like that: panel layout, the size, the placement, if somebody's in a panel or somebody's shadowed in a panel, all those nuances are going to be missing digitally, because you just have the one picture at a time, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, I agree with you, but again, you're right. They're going to be missing that aspect, and it's sad, but it's the future, I'm afraid.
Well, it'll make these ones that are on paper already more collectible and valuable, I think, because at a point where there's no such thing as a real comic book anymore, if God forbid that ever comes, people who have the ones when they used to be real back in the old days, they will be more valuable, because it'll be something that's like an antique. It's not around anymore. So I think it'll help the value of the ones we have now.
Yeah, eventually. Although that doesn't always the case. Like pulps are really not that valuable.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Time magazines. So you remember when everyone was collecting Time magazines while Time magazine was still out. And then once Time magazine kind of went away, there was a small period after that where people still collected them. And now they're you know, yard sales, trash bins, you know, no one's really doing it. I remember when TV guides, remember people were collecting TV guides.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And that was a big deal. And now I don't even think TV Guide exists anymore in the print form, and nobody cares about it, you know. So I don't think every print media, when it goes away, I don't think it necessarily makes everything else more valuable, because you're losing the face time that people see it when they walk down the aisle and they see it in front of them, like, oh, this is cool. What? You mean they've been making these for 100 years? Well, let's go find the others, you know.
I think comics are going to be a little bit more resilient than those examples, even the pulps, because they are works of art, you know, and those have sort of stayed the test of time. But how long they will do that, I don't know.
Yeah, let me just throw in defense of pulps, but I see Knights of Old already beat me to it. Pulps are very collectible, and the prices on those have really gone up, and there are some super expensive pulps. I tried to buy on Heritage a couple weeks ago. They had both issues of Dr. Death, Dr. Death #1 and 2, which is a super awesome pulp. I mean, it's like top 10. And I'm hoping that what you were saying, Roger, was right, that they're not going to be worth that much and I can pick them up because they're awesome. And they were both issues went for over $1,000. And I was like, shit, people are onto the pulps. And, you know, there's a couple nice Brundage covers of Weird Tales out there I've been trying to get forever. And, you know, the cheapest one I can find in the last year is $350. So, I mean, that's not cheap for a pulp, $350. It gets the pulps I have, I buy when they're cheap because I like comics more. So if it starts to get up into comic money, I don't get it. And I've noticed there's a lot I can't get because they're pretty expensive. I mean, pulp prices have gone up.
Well, I'm just speaking relatively. I mean, you don't see a lot of, you know, pulp channels out there. You know, you see a lot of comic channels. You don't see that many pulp channels because there's not a such a big collector base. But
yeah, it's definitely a niche.
It does have is very passionate. But if it expands, then yeah, that'll go through the stratosphere.
Well, it appears to me that the pulp,
relatively speaking, not as comics.
Yeah, the pulp market is dominated by a very small group of super rich people. That's my experience because I can't hang with them. The comics, it seems like I can hang with because I can get really top-notch stuff and I can sort of hang with it. But when I get into the pulps and I go look for like pulps that are at the same level in the pulp world as some of the comics I have, I cannot even get in the game. And maybe it's just because I don't want to spend hundreds to 1,000 on it, but it seems like a lot for a pulp that I don't want to spend. So I don't know.
I always feel that if you're trying to run with the big dogs, it's tough to do that in multiple arenas. Now, if you wanted to sell off your big dog Golden Age collection and get heavy into pulps, now you can. But
yeah, if
you're
I
not
just
going to run with the big
pulps,
dogs of both.
Yeah, if I just wanted to do pulps, I could have no problem with that. But I'm not willing to sacrifice the comics at all for that. So
exactly. So you want to run with the big dogs in 2 different packs. That's tough to do.
I'm such a little dog that not only have to I stick only to comics, but I stick only to Golden Age and I stick only to horror and LB Cole. Because if I even branch out to like superhero or Silver Age or anything else, I all of a sudden don't have enough to hang with that. So I keep my collecting very focused to a very small genre in order to be able to get the stuff I want.
That's smart.
I've cut out everything else except pre-code horror and LB Cole. Essentially, is the only stuff I go after because if I expand beyond that, then the quality of what I can get goes down across the board, and I don't want to sacrifice that. I'd rather have awesome stuff in a very small, focused area that I love the most. So that's why I don't have any superhero books anymore.
That's cool.
And what you collect, I think, is awesome. I mean, because it's focused and you are passionate about it. You're knowledgeable about it. You tick all the check marks there as far as a collector, you know, a true collector, shall we say? You know, I'm sure I know that you've sold stuff, but you don't really buy stuff to invest in anymore, right? I mean, unless it's some kind of something falls in your lap, I'm assuming.
Well, here's what I do. I mean, look, when I have my want list completed and there's only 2 more books ever in the whole world that I want, then I won't care if they're good investments or not. But there's so many books I want that if there's 3 books I'm looking at that I want all 3, I will pick the one that I think at the price it's at is the best investment out of the 3. So, I mean, why not get the best investment since there's so many I don't have anyway? I can pick and choose the best investment and the ones I like.
Right. But then you sell off some of your copies to fund other purchases. So you're really just reinvesting. It's the same pool of money. It's just growing because of the market, but you're investing in your own hobby. Essentially, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of self-generating at this point.
Self-generating. That was the word I was looking for. Exactly.
Yeah, like all the money I spent on these 3 books, which I bought all 3 of these in the last month or so. All of this money came from profits from books that I sold the previous month. So I didn't put any additional money into any of these. Like I bought that Shock Suspense Story 6, which was a pretty big pre-code horror key. I bought a nice copy of that for $600, and then I was able to sell it like, I don't know, 2 weeks later for like $1,400. So I couldn't turn down that profit. I bought it for $600 and sold it for $1,400 in like 2 weeks.
Certainly.
So yeah, that's like, you know, $800 profit, and that went along with another book I bought for $800 and sold for $1,500. So basically made $1,500 and put it into, you know, one of these books.
I think Bub's over there taking notes.
But it took me a while to get to the point where I could. Yeah, I used to be small. I would buy $10 books and $20 books and get them slabbed and sell them for $100. And then I would buy $100 books and I would sell them for $300. Then I would buy like $300 books and sell them for, $600 or $700. Now I'm buying, $600 or $700 books and selling them for $1,500. So that as the profits go up, I can get better stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a great way of again, to me, I don't find anything wrong with that. That's you're reinvesting into your hobby. You're not saying, oh well, I'm gonna sell such and such, and then I'm gonna buy a car. You're reinvesting it into the hobby that you love, and it's self-generating, it's self-fulfilling, and obviously it brings you a modicum of joy, or else you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, so and you have to.
That sounds good.
You have to operate with a certain level of reckless disregard for everything else in your world, in your life that you need, like furniture and pants and vehicles. And there's a level of insanity to it. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Putting off things that a normal person would be like, you definitely need that, and saying, I don't need that, and then putting it into comics. Like spending only spending on comics and virtually nothing else. It's quite insane to do it at this level, but it's what I love, so I don't mind spending it on that.
That's all good. And everyone really, I know we're knocking a lot of price stuff, but everyone really is obviously fair to collect however they want to collect. And honestly, when I see a book that comes out that's really expensive, I get excited because I know that that's one less person with enough money to buy a book that I want. So, that they're taking their comic budget and they invest in something completely different than me. I like that. It makes me more nervous. Like when I'm at a shop and I hear a guy next to me, or worse, someone who got there before me asking for the same types of books I'm asking for. I'm like, dang it, this sucks. Like I'd rather be the only guy here who cares about these books, because then I can buy them a little bit cheaper. I don't want a whole lot of competition.
The chat has been hilarious. Knights of Old says it's all about how long these shoes can last.
Exactly.
And then Bad Dad says, I cut my own hair. And Pope Cerebus says, it's true, I'm not wearing pants right now.
See, this is the crowd that appreciates what we're talking about. They know it. They get it.
You guys are off the chain hilarious.
That's what it's
about. Yeah, and Knights of Old, he has a bunch of timelies, and I tried to get into timelies, and I bought a couple, not many, I think I bought 2, which I then sold because I don't have enough to go around to Pre-Code Horror, LB Cole, and timelies. I had to cut the timelies out, and that's a lot of Schoenberg stuff that I love too, and I just can't. Yeah. I can't swing it. No, so I'm already tapped out with 2 pair of jeans only and buying this stuff. If I add anything to my expense arena, I'm done. So it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, there are very few people who can battle in that arena. I mean, you got like Nerdy Girl on Instagram that she shows all of this stuff all the time, and I'm like, I can't believe all the stuff that she has. But very few people can fight those kind of battles at that high a price point.
Yeah, I'd like to work my way there. Right now, I'm still pushing through the Bronze Age, and then I'd like to pick up a few. I'm starting to pick up a little bit more silver than I usually do. So I'm gonna, fill in a couple of small keys, minor keys in silver that I just like the cover of, and then I'm gonna skip a lot of the other silver that I don't care about.
Well, if you want to pick up
to Atlas and Timely.
Yeah, and if you want to pick up big books, I think the only way to do it is you have got to figure out some way to flip books for profit. You've got to find some area that you know really well. You've got to find some way to get books at a price that you can flip them for a prop. You've got to work in some type of dealer flipper system if you want to go after bigger books. I'm not able to get big books without flipping other ones for profit. And Bub, you're starting to go after like bigger and bigger books in the last year. You get to a certain point based on your income and what you have able to spend that you got to get, and you will, because we're obsessive about this, so we'll find a way, but you got to find stuff that you can flip for money and for profit to get bigger books, because there's no way I can afford a $2,000 book just from my paycheck. There's no way that happens. I've got to find ways to flip books for profit to get there. doing that sort of successfully lately, but
well,
without that.
I think that's what Nerdy Girl does too, because she deals in comics. So, you know, a lot of the stuff she shows, I'm sure, is just, you know, stuff that it's for sale eventually. But man, you're right. Playing in those arenas, you know, unless you have some kind of job, you know, that, you know, you're making $1 million plus a year, forget it.
Yeah, if you're rich, you can just buy what you want. You never have to sell anything. But the dealers that are really successful, also, they're very particular about what they keep for themselves. They pretty much will buy and sell everything. Almost everything they have is for sale. I have very little of what I own is actually for sale. But the more you're willing to sell, the more you will be able to buy, and the more particular it can be about what you want to keep for yourself. And it's just, you know, how much do you want to keep for yourself? What type of books do you want? And, you know, how willing are you to part with stuff that's in your collection?
Well, Bad Dad says, according to WebMD, those pet meds work just fine on me. He's hilarious. If you've seen his videos, he's got some hilarious stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's really hilarious stuff. Alex, the comic quarter is in the chat. Hey, Alex, how you doing, buddy? How's the weather in Chicago, man?
Yeah, you know, and that's the other thing. You got to have books. At some point, a lot of us go from flipping and upgrading too. Well, I have this book, but I'm going to get another copy of it because it's better than the other one, so I'll sell that one. So I think that's kind of a natural flip that a lot of collectors do. It's just in the process of upgrading the condition of their books or the copies of their books to get better ones, and then selling off the downgraded one in order to recuperate some of that cost back, you know, that expense.
Yeah, I've got some advice on that too, if you want to hear it. Because sure. I used to do that, especially with Golden Age stuff and even superhero stuff or whatever. I'd always upgrade, and even Copper Age stuff. I would have 9.4s and 9.6. I would upgrade to 9.8. And what I've found is more efficient financially is just only buy copies that you are going to be satisfied with off the bat. Don't buy a filler. Don't buy a copy for now, or don't buy a copy until you find a better one. Just don't buy it. Wait until you find one that meets your criteria that you're good with. And wait, and don't buy one you have to upgrade. Just buy what you want right off the bat. I think that's more efficient.
I don't agree with that one. For me, it's a good test that some books I have bought the downgraded copy or the extra low grade, if you will, the one that I know I'll upgrade someday or hope to upgrade someday. And then once I get it in my possession, the need to get that book disappears. So I know that book was good enough for me. And then other books I've got in my possession, and I'm like, that's it. Nope, I'm going to upgrade this just as soon as I can. So I kind of don't know until I already own it for a couple of days whether this is going to be the book that I keep or the book that I upgrade. Maybe that's just me not being decisive enough, but you know, I have to look through it. I have to hold it. I have to decide right then, you know, is this my book for now or forever? And I'm always surprised by the answer. You know? So there you go.
Yeah, that's happened to me, but you know, you sort of have to figure out who you are as a collector. Like what are you looking for in a book? Like for my books, I want something complete, unrestored, presentable, that doesn't have big tears or stains or especially chunks missing out of the cover. You'll see none of the books I have are real high grade, but they all are intact. There's really nothing missing from the covers. There's no chunks. There's no major stains. They're all very presentable, albeit low grade. So I know what criteria I'm looking for. When I find a book with that criteria, I'll get it. And then I usually anymore never feel a need to upgrade anything.
Yeah, that is I understand what DS is talking about here, because listen, if you put too much emotion into it and you're too desperate, you'll make bad decisions, right? But if you have something that you can live with and you can be patient and you can stalk your prey and wait until it comes to a point where it's reachable, then you'll make better decisions and you'll pay less and you'll be able to flip it then and make maybe back what you paid for the undercopy. But if you buy it and you're like, I really don't want this, then in your mind, you want to get rid of that because it's just not suitable for you.
Yeah, and so I've taken a loss on books before where I've bought it impulsively and it's not worth what I paid and it's not going to be anytime soon. And, you know, you just have to practice some acceptance there. It's not worth what you overpaid and you don't want it anymore. You know, take a loss and get rid of it and move on and try to learn from that mistake and not be impulsive the next time, or have a better idea of what the values are, and don't overpay or negotiate better, wait, or get something else. But, you know, to hold on to something that's a loss because you just refuse to accept that you're losing on it, just move on, sell it, and move on. And, you know, I've taken losses on books. I've bought a book impulsively, it pops up, or I was thinking about it and it pops up at a grade and it's overpriced and I grab it. And then I'm like, man, I overpaid for that. And then I really don't even want it. And then, you know, at some point you just have to, you know, move on. So I'll sell it at a loss and I'll just move on and try to learn from it and become less impulsive next time. You know, it's a learning process. It is a learning all the time.
Yeah. Alex, the Comic Quarter, is asking a few questions. I don't know if Bub, are you seeing these?
Yeah. I just answered one. He was talking about would you get restoration removal, which I know DS talks about sometimes. Yeah. And he says for his PC, so that's the answer for me. You know, if it's for your PC, then I don't believe in restoration removal for the PC. I would just, Purple Label doesn't bother me, but a lot of people, Purple Label is like a death nail, and they won't have it in their collection. It's akin to you know, bad juju and bugaboos and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of really, really strong feeling about Purple Labels out there. So, you know, for me, it doesn't bother me, but it has to be what you care about. You know, if you don't care about Purple Label, I wouldn't take the chance to damage it with restoration removal. And to me, you know, you can say, oh, well, you never hear it. Well, to me, anytime someone is taking something to the book and working on it, there's a chance for damage. Even in a pressing, there's a chance for damage. So,
yeah, I mean, I've used the restoration removal before. And again, it comes down to you have to know who you are as a character. You have to know yourself as a character, as a collector. You know, there's certain types of restoration that I don't want on my books and I won't tolerate, and that's color touch and trimming. Those two. I will never buy a book with color touch and trimming no matter what it is, because I already know about myself as a collector. I can't abide those things on a comic book. But, you know, it might not bother some other people if it's a huge grail or depending on what it is. But I have bought books with color touch before where it's been a little bit of color touch on the spine by the staples or whatever. I've sent it in to get that removed. It doesn't come all the way off, but what happens is it goes from purple to blue. It's not the color of the label that bothers me. It's the nature of the book. It's that it's been altered in a way that really bugs me. So I try to get that alteration changed. I don't really care what the color of the label ultimately is. It ends up being blue, but you can see where the color touch was, but it's not there anymore. It's been removed, but there's maybe the slightest tint where the paper is now white or the crease is now white, and there's the slightest little tint. It's now showing honestly where the wear is, and I like that. I can see that where the color touch was, it's been removed. There's the slightest little tint still there, but it's now presenting honestly for the life it's lived, and it's not phony. It doesn't have a bunch of makeup on it. Do you know what I mean? So it depends on who you are as a collector, but yeah, I've taken a chance on color touch books with minor color touch and had it removed. I've got one right now that has tear seals and the cover reinforced with glue. Doesn't really bother me too much because it still looks in an honest way, that the way the book should look, but it has some glue inside the spine at the staples to keep it from coming apart more than what it was apparently. But I may have that removed, but it doesn't bother me that much because it's not altering how the book is, how it looks.
Yeah, isn't that really more preservation than restoration? Isn't that really you're putting something so that it doesn't continue to deteriorate? And
yeah, I mean, I've got a purple label on that, and the color of the label doesn't bother me because the book is what it is, and what it is fine with me. But it would be conserved if the same work was done with archival materials. If somebody used archival tape to seal the tearing at the staples and reinforce that cover on the inside, it would get a conserved label. But since somebody just slapped some glue in there, it gets a restored label. So if you're just caught up in the color of labels, then that might be a huge deal breaker. But to me, what was done to it with glue inside on the spine with where the staple is, yeah, all right, it's not ideal, but it's not altering how the book looks or actually is, sort of. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
When I look at the book, it looks like the way it's supposed to look.
Yeah, it seems to me like the other two, the two they were talking about, color added and trimming, are artificial means to make the comic look better.
Trimming is the worst because you've removed part of the book and it's gone forever. Of the book.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the same size. It's artificially sharp. It's bad.
So to me, I totally agree that it's sort of an underhanded way of trying to get somebody to, either if you're selling it or whatever, you make the comic more presentable. But the other things, to conserve it, to preserve it, to me, I think that's a positive in a sense, because the comic is going to continue to deteriorate if you have rusty staples, for example, and if you don't remove those and replace them, then you're doing a disservice. It's not the original staples, but the book will eventually, I think Bub showed one on his channel where the thing bled through and looked terrible.
Yeah, I mean, when a book has staples replaced, you often get a conserved label, and people, I don't want that's not a blue label. Well, so what? Would you rather have one with rusty staples that are going to continually make the brown spots bigger and uglier on that book over time forever? Or I would rather have one with replaced staples. They were replaced, but most likely because they were rusty. It doesn't bother me that much. I mean, it's sort of saving the book. It doesn't alter it that much. I mean, it's an alteration that doesn't bother me, having the staples replaced. Same as tape. Tape doesn't bother me. Some collectors don't want tape on their books. I buy books. I don't care if there's tape on it. So what? People tape comic books forever. It's just, and that's why CGC doesn't give you a restored label for tape. I totally get that, because for me, it's not restoration. It's just people have always taped tears on comic books. So what? It doesn't bother me if there's tape.
I've done it in the past.
But you got to know who you are as a collector. You've got to know yourself as a collector to determine whether certain things bother you or not. And then you've got to go out and get what's good for you and not try to force something and be like, well, I really want this one. It has some tape or some color touch. I'm all right for it now. You're not going to be all right with it. Figure out what you're okay with and go after that.
Knights of Old says, he says, pieces added, the worst, in my opinion. What pieces, where, how big? You replace the whole cover.
Yeah, when they're in a slab, it's hard to tell if it's done well, because you look at it up close and you can check it out and inspect it, and you cannot tell where those damn pieces have been added.
Yeah, I think that's his point. That's his point exactly. What if it's right smack in the middle of the cover, a big hole was there, and somebody added a piece?
Yeah, and it's done so. Usually, it's a corner piece or something, but
usually
sometimes it's obvious. But sometimes it's not obvious, where it says pieces added. You can't tell where. It's really hard to tell, and that bothers me too, because there's something when you look at that book is fake about it, and that bothers me.
Silver Age Dave says, take out the rusty staples, take the book apart, and then laminate all the pages. Does that affect the value?
Yeah, but that's exactly what he did with his Marvel Value Stamp book.
That's exactly what he did with his Value Stamp.
He might end up with quite a unique and valuable item by doing that with that book too, because that's something that's like, that book is made for that kind of format almost. It's almost begging to be taken apart and laminated so you can see it.
Yeah, I thought that was genius myself.
Yeah, me too. I never even considered doing
that.
Yeah.
Alex asked one other question I wanted to address here. Let's see. Oh, if you have $10 books, would you sell them to get one $100 book? And then he ups it and so on. Yeah, Alex, definitely. I would. If I had $100 books, I would sell them and buy one book worth 100.
Well, now, wait. I want to clarify that just a little bit, because I have a question on that too. So let's say you have 10 books that you only spent $1 for, but for whatever reason, they're worth, market value much more than that. So
then they're
does that make sense?
Yeah, they're only dollar books if they're worth $1. If you buy a whole quantity one for $1, that's no longer a dollar book.
Okay.
But if you go through your collection and you have a stack of hundreds of books that are each worth $10, I would sell them all and buy one or two books worth thousands. Because for me, I would much rather have 50 grails than 5,000 fillers.
Okay. I was just double checking.
At this point, I only have like 200 books, and really my collection proper is like 50 books, and they're all grails, and they're all worth $1,000 average. And, that's far more satisfying than having long box after long box of $5 and $10 and $15 books.
I got a lot of those.
Well, again, depends on who you are as a collector. You love having all those books, and you have lots.
You're in the meteor cave of gluttony, or whatever it was called.
I don't have enough books to fill the closet in the Meta cave.
DS? Did you hear? Did you? Was there a hint of jealousy in there? DS?
There was definitely.
Whatever, whatever
that
name
decided this, right, Bob? Third party
whatever
decided
name
this.
was a good one. I don't remember what it was, but I know it was good.
The Meta Cave of Gratitude is what.
That's what I said. The Meteor of Gluttony. That's it.
Yeah, I would never advise Roger to sell any bulk of books to buy a big one. I would never advise you to do that, Roger, because that's not who you are as a collector. You love each one of your books equally and passionately, and you have a fantastic collection. Alex sounds like he may be a little closer to me, where it's more important to have some grails than to have all these long boxes of other books that are not quite as important. And if that's who I am as a collector, I would much rather have the bigger books, and I would rather just have a couple big books than thousands of small ones.
I mean, I realize that I'm getting older now. I mean, so it's very hard for me to lug these boxes around. So I know that at some point in the future, I am going to, contract, right? It may be 5, 10, 15 years at some point. But honestly, when I do that, a piece of me is going to be sad because, I've started collecting, 45 years ago. So, but I understand that, somebody else has to enjoy what I've enjoyed too. So I kind of feel I have a kind of a dual sadness there, but I agree. What I'm going to do is probably something like what you're doing. I'm going to, sell, a run of I have a 30-year run of Avengers, and I'll sell that and I'll get a, Spider-Man 2 or something and, go that way.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on what you're into. I mean, but if you're into a smaller collection where most of the books are big and you don't have a lot of long boxes anymore, if that's what you're into, it has benefits. It doesn't take up much space. It's very easy to manage. And it's awesome to look through, to display, and every single book you have is a grail for you, and it doesn't take up any space at all, and it's very easy to manage. And if you have to move stuff around,
it's worth it.
It's so easy. I have I have 3 short boxes, basically. That's it. And then some random shit. But
after I moved, I would never have said this before, by the way, but after I moved and I had to move these 25 long boxes, well, or the equivalent, some of them were in bins and so forth. I sort of was like, wow, that's a lot of comics I got, and that I can't contain, I can't keep them forever. I mean, I'm not immortal. So, at some point I'm going to have to contract. So, hopefully it won't be, maybe more than 5, 10 years down the road. And then I'll be talking to you, DS, because you're probably the best person to get advice about, what it is that I should do. But it's going to happen sooner or later. And hopefully somebody else will enjoy this, at some point, just like I did, because I really do love each and every one of these comics.
Here's what I'm just going to throw out there, because you just recently moved and you're renting too.
Yes.
So, for me, I'm not going to do that major cull and purge until I'm in the home that I suspect I'm going to die in.
Right.
When I'm in the home that I suspect I'm going to die in, that I know how much space I have and I know what I can dedicate to comic space, and then I want to be happy in that space. And if I have more comics than I can enjoy in that space, then I'll cull the herd. But if I have, who knows, I could end up with a huge basement or a huge giant showroom, and I'll wish I had all those comics back to fill it. So,
that's that's kind of in the back of my mind, but still, in all, even in that scenario, I have to pare it down a bit because I just can't be lifting all these all the time. Right now, whenever I do a video, I'm working on a couple of videos now, right? And I have all these comics accessible to me. They're within 10 feet of me right now. All my comics, well, maybe 15 because I have a couple in the other room, but they're all accessible to me. But it's getting tough to lift and find and then replace and so forth. I'm 54 now. In 15 years, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to at least have to cut it back to, 3, 4 long boxes, I figure, at some point.
Yeah, with Bub, I just tell you, Bub, that I know there's grails you're looking for and big books you're going after, and I just want you to consider if you have, a few hundred books that you're really not in love with anymore, you could sell those, and it could really help you get one of these bigger grails. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do it, but I think you should consider doing that. You should go through on a regular basis and consider if you have books that you really are not in love with anymore that could move.
I do. I do that quite regularly. And
yeah, you have started to do that. Yeah.
I mean, I've only got like 2,300 books total. And a lot of it's dedicated to my complete run of Wolverine. So at that point, there's a good, 400 books that are not going anywhere.
Right.
So now what? So there's not that many left over, and it's a pretty tight collection, I think, so far. And what I'm getting rid of are like the modern stuff that I don't care about. Collecting a run of that, somebody else wants it, they can have it. I read it, I enjoyed it, and when I list them, I put read once. That's what I put, read once, because that's true, and still has a digital code if anyone cares about that. I read once,
have trouble.
Got the code.
I'm gonna have trouble there because I'm gonna have to put read at least 10 times each. I mean, it's gonna kind of bring down the value, but most of mine are just mid grades anyway, so I guess that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at the point with my collection now, like it's all the way down. I don't have any fillers. I don't have any excess. I mean, I'm very OCD, and I feel like my collection is very neat and very organized, and it's very efficient. I don't have any extra stuff. Everything I have, I love, and it's small and it's manageable, and I've cut all the fat off of it, and it's exactly the way I want it now, and I couldn't be happier. This is the most satisfied I've ever been with my collection. So
wow,
that's fabulous. Awesome. People who are sort of similar mindset to me may want to consider doing that, because I had thousands of books before, and it's taken me a while, and I'm at the point now where it's all the way down. I don't have any more fat to cut off it. It's exactly the way I want it, and I love it.
Well, cool.
Good for you, buddy.
Keep them.
I need more. I don't have everything I want, but everything I have is exactly what I want. But there's obviously far more I want to get. But now I can just simply figure out ways to up the budget to go after books I want, and just pick up only books I want and add them one at a time on a much slower basis. But every one I get is like Grail level for me. So that's where I'm at as a collector.
That's cool. Well, guys, we've been on here for a while, longer than usual. Who knew it was going to be such a... When was the last time we talked about prices? Oh, yeah, this comic's 10 cents. All right, good. We stayed on topic. Good job, guys.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's a really cool LB Cole, and there's not a lot of them out there. That's a really cool book.
Well, it's funny. So I was looking, I'd sent you a picture of this DS, and you said you think it's probably a 2 or a 2.5. And I would have to agree with that, because it may be a 1.8. So, having it in my hand, I have the luxury of looking at it. It's a little worse than I thought. So I give it probably a 1.8 or a 2.0. It's complete. Covers detached. So that's why
that's all right, though. It looks good, man. So what?
Yeah. And well, can't tell in there.
There's only 4 on the census right now. So if I get this graded, this will be either the lowest graded copy on the census or the 5th highest graded copy on the census.
That's true.
So,
are you a glass half full or half empty kind of guy? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Depends how thirsty I am.
I have a couple books that are the lowest on the census out of like less than 10 total, and I have the lowest graded copy, and I love that because I have one of them. It's a rare book. Mine's the lowest on the census. It's super cool to be the lowest one on the census, where there's only like 8 on the census.
I have one of those.
Get it graded. Have the lowest graded copy on the census of a cool, hard to find LB Cole book. That's great.
Here we go. Here we go. Right here. There we go. Lowest on the census, right there.
Yeah, there you go. That's a cool book.
I love that.
Lowest on the census. And by the way, the only reason it's low is because it's split all up to right there.
Yeah, but it looks good.
But so yeah, I love this book. This is my first ever Golden Age book, DS.
Yeah, I know you've said that before. Yeah, I really like that. The colors pop on it too. It looks fresh. Oh, it's nice.
I love it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So yeah, I know what you're talking about though. There's sort of a rush about that. I mean, I'm not a slabber, but a low grade slab like that, man, that just kind of winds my watch.
Yeah, and when I have I get all these stuff slabbed anyway, but when I have a low grade book, especially, I have a little bit of anxiety until I get it slabbed, because it's, the slightest handling will do so much more damage because it's already got major splitting and tears and whatnot. So as soon as I can get that thing in a slab and safe to handle again and display or whatever, then I can relax. So And they always look better when you get them in the slabs. If it has a split or whatever, yeah, it'll be a low grade, but it's always sort of a relief.
Yeah, it lines it up really nice too. You know, they do a great job of lining the cover back up to where any kind of split or anything is almost indetectable. So.
Yeah, it locks it down in a nice, presentable, preserved way, and I really like that. With the really low grade stuff, I really love to get it graded because then it's like a relief.
I only paid $7.37 to get that slab, by the way.
That's pretty good.
Nice.
Because I won a contest. Got a free standard submission. So that's what I sent in.
Oh, nice.
Nice. That's awesome.
I won a trivia contest, of course.
Well, yeah, you should win them all, except you can't.
No.
You can't. Yeah.
Listen, if you ever DS, were you at Reggie's trivia contest the other day?
No, I missed it.
Man, I don't know how those people get those answers in that quick. I did it as soon as he said it, and I still was like 5th on every one.
They're probably on hardwired internet, like somebody's sitting on a tower somewhere in a deer stand.
I tell you, it's amazing to me.
Yeah, I know. I always have, like, when I type something, it's always like 3 to 5 seconds before it pops up, and he'll be wanting to finish with the sentence, and somebody's typed the answer. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's what happens to me.
Typing it before he started asking or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
Same here. It's almost impossible with my internet to get the jump on anybody.
Yeah.
I tell you a quick little trick that I do. Like sometimes people will do the pre-recorded YouTube sales. So they do like a YouTube sale, like these are the books I'm going to sell, and first person to say they want it in the comments gets it. That doesn't happen too often, but every now and then you'll see one. And so I always watch those at 2 times speed so that I can catch all the books. That way, if I turned it on at the same time somebody else turned it on, I'm watching at 2 times speed. I should get to the end faster. And if there's a good book at the end, it's mine. So
yeah, that's true. That'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex said he actually won one of the questions. I'm surprised about that. And Alex, good. You must have great internet, buddy, because there's no way I wasn't even like 3rd. I was like 4th or 5th every time.
Yeah. The live sales bother me with that too. I can't get a bid in. They're like calling last call. I'm like, I put a bid in 2 minutes ago. What the heck?
It's that Kentucky internet, man. Forget it.
I know it. It all goes south somewhere around Mississippi, or I guess north.
It's no good here either. Trust me.
Oh, good. Oh, good. All right, guys. Let's shut her down.
All right. Sorry.
We'll be back next week. Same channel, same time, and all that good stuff. Come catch us. Thank you all. It's been a lively chat. Great contributions from everyone in there. Anyone we missed, come in. I'm sorry we missed you. Stir Fry was in. I was trying to get him on tonight because I know he gets real hot and bothered about prices of books. But anyway, guys, thank you again for joining me tonight, and thank you to everyone in the chat. We'll catch you next week. Go ahead and let's say our goodbyes. DS, we'll start with you.
All right, everybody do your homework, and we'll see you again soon. And I'm out.
Thank you. Thanks. And Roger?
All right, buddy. Take care. Everybody be blessed. Be back next week.
All right. There you go. And I will tell everybody to read a comic. Thanks. Bye.